News Live. So glad that you're here. I've got two of my favorite people back on the show with me today. So this is going to be a fun one. I think it's really cool because it's something that oh gosh, it's in the news all the time, but it's really exciting. I see it as an opportunity. I know Lauren and I have talked about this before, and Lisa, I know, sees it as an opportunity too, this AI thing. So we're going to be talking about that. So if you know somebody who's interested in this and is, like, or maybe like, I don't know, is it worth going? And, is it bad for artists? All this stuff. Call them into the conversation. I would love to have them be a part of this. Even if they can't watch it live, we'll be answering the comments later. And if you do me a favor, if this show is of any value to you, will you tell a friend and let them know that we're a podcast as well? We're trying to expand, and just the best way to do that is you guys who watch the show with us, because you all are amazing. Let me double check here as we're going along. Lauren, how are you doing today? I'm trying to make sure Amazon is working. Let's see. We'll see if it'll work. Because there's a coloring book I want to sell. So it's very, very cool. Let me get my where are my comments going? So Lisa, you're saying it's rainy in Florida today. So I mean, does that keep you out of the park, or do you run in it anyway?
Well, I don't think I could safely run in it. It's perfect coloring book weather.
That's a good way to pull it in. And you light a candle while you're coloring as well. Yeah. So let me get my comments up here. There we go. Oh, there we go. So we got our friends.
Facebook user.
Yes,
I think that must be Lou.
That may be Lou. I don't know why Facebook will not let Lou and I get together. And Chris is going, what is this AI thing that you speak of? Oh, yes, Chris. He has done some amazing stuff, too. We got our friend Fred from Momentum says, good morning, and it's working from this end of Facebook. Thank you, Fred, for stopping by. Fred and I have had some great conversations about AI as well. So Facebook user perfect coloring book. That's Lou, because he's went away.
That's Lou.
That's Lou. Yeah. So, very excited to talk about this. I'm going to hit go on the podcast machine because I want to have plenty of time to talk to Lisa, and make sure you guys ask your questions, because I want to make this show all about what you want to talk about. I'll do my best to, kick the ball back into play, but let me get going on the podcast machine and we'll get started. Hello, folks. Welcome to Social Media News Live. I'm Jeff C., and you're not.
And this is the show that keeps you up to date on what's happening in the world of social media and more.
Have you ever wondered how creativity and technology can come together to create something truly unique? Are you intrigued by the possibilities of AI in art and design? Or maybe you're interested in how passion for running and Disney can inspire a creative project. If those questions spark your curiosity, then you're in for an exciting episode today. We're absolutely delighted to introduce a guest who has beautifully blended these elements together. She's a creative powerhouse who turned her love for running, Disney, and art into fascinating coloring book project. Lisa DiNoto Glassner is here, also known as the Castle Runner. She's going to be sharing her journey, her insights, and her top tips for harnessing technology in creative projects. So get comfortable, light a candle, and prepare for an episode brimming with creativity, innovation, and inspiration. So let's dive into the magical world of art and AI with Lisa. Lisa, how are you doing today?
I'm great. I'm so excited to be here with you two today.
Yeah, and go back and listen we've had Lisa on before talking about Instagram, because she just kills it over there. But if you don't know Lisa, let me introduce you, because she's got such a great story. She's graduated from Columbia University in 1999 and Harvard Law in 2004 before moving on to a big law career in mergers and acquisitions on Wall Street, where she lived an incredibly successful life on paper that felt pretty empty in reality. In 12 years, a marriage, 2 babies, several moves, and approximately 36,000 hours of work later, she said enough was enough and escaped with only the vague hope of reconnecting with whatever it was that she really was passionate about. Since then, she relocated to Walt Disney World and spent the years since running countless miles, teaching herself photography and videography, mothering her 2 boys, creating core memory candles, which is excellent, by the way, and documenting it all on her site, thecastlerun.com, and her Instagram, @thecastlerunner, where she hopes that you, too, may be inspired to create your own little pocket of joy in the world. Lisa, once again, so awesome that you're here.
I'm so excited. This is one of my favorite topics and two of my favorite people. So what could
Well,
go
there we
wrong?
go. Yeah, and I want and Lauren has been a guest, and she's been a co-host. So Lauren Gaggioli, holy guacamole, Lauren Gaggioli is here. I am so excited to have you back on, helping me out with this thing. So thanks for
Well, I
doing
am
this.
thrilled to be here because I am so looking forward to learning more. I love the intersection of art and AI in theory, and I want to learn how you're how you're leveraging it, Lisa, because
And
there's a lot to be learned here.
yeah, and I never would like when she dropped this in the Hub Mastermind group. I
Yeah.
was like, what? I didn't even know she was interested in this kind of stuff. It was just like, this is cool. So it was very, very cool. I couldn't wait to have her on the show. I want to get some. Oh, Lou's coming. Lou is coming at you
It's
from
coming
both
in hot.
sides. Oh my gosh. Here we go. You know what else is coming at you from both sides? Our friends over at Ecamm. That's right. They are sponsoring this show. They are amazing. They're what makes the show possible. Lou actually uses them as well. I wanted to tell you guys about a new show that's going on right now. They just relaunched Demo Modes Pro with Alicio, who is actually going to come on the show next month and talk about that. But some great stuff. They launch new shows every week on YouTube. So make sure you go to youtube.com/at Ecamm Live. You can find them there and check out this new show because it is amazing. What else is amazing is, again, our show today. And we've got Ian saying, it is a confusing world we live in. Maybe you should ask ChatGPT. Well,
We're going to.
we're going to. So, and Lou continues to heckle from the back. So let's talk about this thing, this AI thing, because it really did blow me away, Lisa, that when I saw you, like, I made a coloring book with AI, and it's doing fine. So let's talk about inspiration and motivation. Like, why in the world, what inspired you to create a coloring book? And was there like a particular moment, like you were just like you're making your candles and you went, you know what? I need a coloring book to go with these candles. I mean, how did this happen?
Not at all. It was actually a far more organic process than that. I was, going sort of down the rabbit hole with AI and different projects and just experimenting with it and just kind of following my curiosity as I'm want to do. It's the same way the candles came to be. I have the Core Memory candles, which is a line of Disney-inspired candle scents, and they also sort of came to be from following my curiosity. And that's how this came to be as well. Just sort of this really, really interesting, and obviously we'll delve into how it plays out more, but this really interesting intersection of technology and AI and the world of where that is today, and bringing in sort of some art and other aspects of things that appeal to me, like being present in the moment and being meditative and self-care and that kind of thing. They all sort of came together in this in a similar way that they came together in running for me.
So now, Lauren, you're gonna have to jump in because I will ask all the questions.
You keep going. You keep going. I'm here to just like.
Okay. So I don't know. All of a sudden I quit. There we go. My computer was being slow. The question I wanted to ask is like, okay, you just mentioned your passion for Disney and running kind of influenced this. So how? Because it's not a Disney book.
No, it's not Disney.
But how did it tie in?
So I think the best way to explain this is to kind of take it back to a conversation I had with my career counselor in law school. Because I think it's a conversation that stuck with me for the rest of my life. And I was sitting with her. I went to Harvard Law, and one of the great things that came with that is the ability to have access to the incredible counselors and people that work with you when you're there. So I was sitting with a career counselor at Harvard a year or two into my legal education, and I was really loving intellectual property at that point. And I remember sitting with the career counselor and saying that I loved this school of thought in law. And she said to me, it might not be the specific school of thought that you're interested in, but what it's feeding you sort of collaterally. And the example that she gave was, you might think that you love Mexican food, but you might just need the salt. And so I think that has sort of like, I've carried that with me in some way, shape, or form, like for the rest of my life since, and just sort of being aware and giving myself permission to do things that like might seem a little bit strange or out of character or off brand, acknowledging that it might not be the fact that like I wanted to make a coloring book my whole life, but that in this moment, it was a very lovely expression of both the creative aspect of it and the fact that it feeds mindfulness and it's good for self-care and it's a good way for me to connect with my children. And these are all things that I can say about running as well. Very different, obviously, than creating an adult coloring book or using an adult coloring book, but this sort of idea of presence and mindfulness and creativity that can come through in this, the way that they can come through in other things, I think is sort of how they all end up coming to be.
So I love chatting about creativity, because that, is super important. But one of the things that I wanted to kind of focus on, you mentioned your guidance counselor saying, like, okay, maybe you just like the salt. I know for Lou, he loves sushi just for the sake. But and so does Lauren. So let's dive into this creativity thing, because I come from the belief that I think everybody is creative in their own way, and a lot of people think they're not, because I think they've been told when they were younger, you're not very creative, or your sister's more creative than you are, and kind of maybe been told that throughout the years. But how do you foster creativity? Like, how did you? You are very mindful of, okay, I'm going to follow this path, and a lot of people say, well, I can't really follow a path because that's not my niche, or that or whatever. Because this is like, how does it tie into candles or tie into your Instagram? All that stuff. It seems like a out of left field, but you're like, you dove into it because I'm just going to follow, where this leads me.
I think it all just comes together naturally. I think I'm using a lot of metaphors today, but like when I decorate my house, I'm not thinking like this room needs to go with this room, needs to go with this room, needs to go with this room for it all to come together. I just sort of go with what I gravitate towards as far as personal style and color schemes and things like that. And it works out because it's a house that's designed by me, all on points and sort of, in line with the things that I'm drawn to and the colors that I'm drawn to. So each room might have its own character, but they all work together in the end because they're all from me, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And so while I'm sort of vaguely mindful of how all of the different things that I'm doing fit together at any given time, I also just sort of allow the process to play out. And like I said, just kind of follow my curiosity and see how it all fits together in the end.
Lauren, do you have a question?
So yeah, I do, because I love this idea of us as the container. This is something I've been exploring quite a lot lately, as in the domain of purpose and naming your purpose, and how from the outside it can all look like disparate things, but ultimately I am the thing that holds it together. And it sounds very similar to how you're engaging with your creativity. But I love that you're going to curiosity first. So I'm curious to know if you had any like projected hopes or goals for this project beyond, I find this intriguing and I'm curious about where this might lead. Did you have a vision for where you wanted it to be, or was it let the process guide you?
A little bit of both. I think first it's important. I want to just touch on the first thing that you said, is talking about ourselves as like a vessel, or as like a way for like the creativity to pass through us, or our purpose to pass through us. And I don't know if you've read The Creative Act by Rick Rubin.
I haven't.
Anybody who hasn't read it should read it immediately. It is the best thing on creativity that's come out in decades, and I've read it more than once already. But he talks a lot about the fact that we are all creative, and that the goal shouldn't be creating great art, but to put yourself in a situation where the process becomes inevitable. And so that's sort of the mindset that I try to actively foster at all times. And I think that following your creativity goes along with that a lot. There's very honest and less philosophical reasons for doing all of this. I obviously own a candle store. I am vastly familiar with the realities of creating a physical product that you're creating yourself. And the idea of exploring something like Amazon KDP, which is a very different way of putting a physical product into a world, was really interesting to me. And so I think that it's less so that I had a specific, I think I wanted the stakes to be low on my first project in order not to put the pressure on myself and not to have the fear to put it into the world. I suffer from perfectionism and wanting to put the perfect product into the world, like a lot of us. And I think sometimes if you just like allow yourself to lower the stakes a little bit, and just do something like, I didn't want my first Amazon KDP project to be the Great American Novel. Um, but I wanted to like give myself permission maybe to write the Great American Novel one day, and I
I was
wanted
gonna
to
say
understand the
that's
process
next.
first.
That's step 2.
It's not that true. There's going to be a few steps in between, but point being, like, I wanted to explore this world of self-publishing, this world of Amazon KDP, and sort of all the different elements of it, and the AI elements that obviously we're going to spend a lot of time talking about.
Mhm.
And it was less that I wanted to like put this phenomenal coloring book that was going to pay my bills for the rest of my life into the world, so much as I just wanted to make something. I just wanted to make something where the stakes weren't so high that I felt the need to spend a year perfecting it. And I created this beautiful thing, and I've since created. I have two coloring books now, so I've done 2 of them. Um,
Wow.
and yeah, I think I'm just sort of getting myself more comfortable with the various elements of it that we'll talk about, like the different steps of the process from AI to the
Mhm.
KDP publication process. And what I can, it's more to me that the first book probably took me a few weeks to make. The second book took me less than 1 week to make. And
Wow.
it's because you're just sort of eliminating all of the confusion in the process and that sort of uphill. So anyway, I wanted to kind of give myself a low stakes entry into this Amazon KDP world, use it as a project where I could learn a lot of other things along the way, and just put it out there.
I think that's great. And we have some great questions that I wanted to make sure, because I think Ian asked a great one, but I want to, Fred has a comment over on YouTube. He goes, spot on, Lisa, and creating doesn't only mean products, but also can mean a feeling, a community, and a connection. And this is Chuck over on Online Video Mastery. He goes, what's that creativity book name again that you mentioned and the author?
It's The Creative Act by Rick Rubin, who is the incredible music producer who put out some of the greatest musical talent in the world over many, many, many decades. And he put out this book called The Creative Act that I think when he went to write a book, I think what everybody was expecting was for him to do this sort of tell-all biography, because he's worked with everybody, all the great names over the years. And I think everybody sort of expected him to do something a little bit more storytelling and biographical. And what he put out instead was this work of art that it's called The Creative Act. And it basically goes on the presumption that we are all creative beings. He points out that creation is creating anything that hasn't existed before. So if you're driving home from work and you take a different route, that is a creative act.
Right.
If you are making dinner and you're out of one spice and you use a different one, that is a creative act. And I think like being aware of those sort of nuanced things that we do throughout the day that are being creative, that maybe we don't give ourselves permission for when we're feeling like we're not in a creative point in our lives, helps a lot to sort of open up to bigger things.
Yeah, that is awesome. Yeah, so now I've got to go and read that. So that's your homework, everybody. Go read that book. So one of the questions, and this is a great question before we move on to your processes and tools, because I think that's one of the things that a lot of people are interested in. But Ian, my friend Ian, asked this question. This might be a little off topic, but what are your thoughts on being creative and financially successful? Some creative people have the starving artist mindset. So what do you say to Ian?
So I think that that's something that we all need to sort of train ourselves to break out of. I think we all have like our built-in ways of defining ourselves, and there's definitely art and money, I think, are really difficult for people. I think a lot of us have this mindset that if we start making money for our art, that we're no longer serving ourselves, we're being untrue to our own creative process. But if you think of, money is just an energy that flows to you because you're putting something great out into the world. I think that we can sort of work on, I think it's just about working on that mental disconnect between being an artist and being deserving of the flow of abundance and the flow of income.
Yeah.
They're not inconsistent, but I do think that like being true to yourself through that process is a challenge.
Yeah, I agree.
Not leaning into what your audience is asking for so much as like serving up what's true to you and then letting your audience come to you. I think that's the truth.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you have a question?
I was just going to say, it sounds very like, I feel like both sides are fraught, like creativity plus money mindset, like separately they're fraught. And then again, it kind of goes to that unification of like, can you become authentic in yourself and be the vessel for authenticity? And then also deal with the things that are keeping you from the creativity and keeping you from feeling like you're worthy of abundance. So and then they interact as well.
Yeah. And I think so many of us just have like mental walls that are ingrained in us since youth, and that there is an inconsistency of income and art. We're sort of raised on the idea of the starving artist, and we feel like we're not being true to ourselves if we're making a living doing what we're doing. But you have to remind yourself that, like, if you're not making money doing what you're doing, then you can't do much good in the world.
Yeah, that's true. So, one of the, and here's another thing, like I do wood carving, and I love to do wood carving, and I've played with, a YouTube channel and stuff, and it does really well, but I'm really nervous about going into that because I don't want to give that up. I don't want to make that a job. You know what I mean? Because I get joy out of it. It's one of the things I can do creative. It's off screens most of the time. So what do you say about that? Were you worried, like, okay, if I do this and it's a money maker, then it won't be creative, or it won't be what brings me joy anymore?
I mean, I'm more than worried about it. I think just largely because of my background, that is my greatest personal challenge. I think because of the career path that I took in going through college and then to law school, and then going into this incredibly demanding field of big law where I was billing like 125-hour weeks sometimes. I am all too familiar with how something that you love can very quickly overtake your life, drown out everything else.
Right.
And become something that you don't love. And that's sort of why I give myself to do things that are out of the box. That's why I do give myself to do things that might surprise other people, because, I have a candle shop, but if it was all that I did, I would lose my mind.
Right.
And so it's something that I'm constantly reevaluating as I move forward. Like, am I walking into a situation that was similar to what I was walking into in big law? Am I giving so much of myself to this thing that I love that I no longer love it? Is it becoming something where I'm not listening to myself anymore, but more listening to what I think my audience is responding to and feeding into that? Because you don't want to start delivering into that machine. So yeah, I mean, I think, and the lowering the stakes idea too. I mean, if you just go live with your wood carving and just sort of do your thing and don't pay attention to how it's performing, or anything like that, and kind of keep yourself on a schedule where, okay, I'm going to do this for 25 minutes every Friday afternoon. Right. So you're not like, oh my God, they're liking it, I need to do it more. I need to do it more. Like, all of a sudden it's like your job, and you're not, right, having lunch with your kids because it's wood carving time.
Yeah. My friend Peg Fitzpatrick calls that feeding the content monster. So, which can be easily to do. So let's go and walk through this, because this will probably take us the bulk of the time, and I'll make sure we talk about it. But let's talk about your process and tools for, from creating this coloring book from start to finish. Like, give us your, like, how it started, like, because I don't even know the process of it. I know you had ChatGPT got in there, some Midjourney got in there. So to kind of just do an overview of how kind of it went, the process.
So obviously there was a lot of sort of playing around and figuring out the tools and going back and forth, but I'll just sort of give you a practical chronology of how I went about doing it. And so the first coloring book that I did, the theme was beautiful sort of property lust-worthy homes, because I was thinking of something that like adults would want to spend their time coloring in and have a little bit of fun with. And then on the back of the page, there's sort of an evaluation point where you can talk about, your property lust level and your mindset change throughout. So once I came up with this topic, and we can go back to how I did that, but I went into ChatGPT and I was just trying to think of like different kinds of homes around the world. So I went into ChatGPT and I just said, I always set the stage initially in a ChatGPT chat so that we can use the thread continuously and the tone and everything works. So set the stage initially. I said, I'm creating an adult coloring book. These are my goals with it. This is sort of the vibe that I want. This is who I want my audience to be. And the theme of it is going to be beautiful homes throughout the world. Can you write me a list of 75 types of homes? And so it whips out a list of 75 types of homes. I soon realized that when I was moving into my art creation, I sometimes needed a little bit more description of, say, what a bungalow is. So I then asked ChatGPT to put it into a table, which it did for me, and alphabetize it. And then I said to ChatGPT, can you add 2 more columns to this table? The first column is going to be a description of the sort of home. So a very clearly worded description of what this home is. So for example, a Tudor is a home with wood beams and a steep thatched roof, that kind of thing. And then the third column was where these sorts of homes tend to be. So, beach house on the beach, a
Mhm.
log cabin in the mountains. Obviously, it got a lot more complicated than that. And so I had that language and those tools and that list to use as a starting point. And then I went into Midjourney, which is an incredible art creation tool. There's DALL-E, there's Stable Diffusion, and then there's the Discord-based models. There's Blue Willow in Discord. My favorite far and away is Midjourney, which is also Discord-based. And in Midjourney, you prompt basically with words to create images. So this is part of why it's my wheelhouse and I love it. I'm very good at words. I think lawyering transfers into prompt engineer very, very easily. And
Right.
I'm surprised if a lot of us go that route, because being good with words and being able to take something that is very theoretical and put it into words is something that lawyers are very well trained in doing. So I think we tend to be very good at prompting. And so in Midjourney, ChatGPT is very sort of natural language based. Midjourney feels a little bit more like you're writing code, but you get a feel for it. And you go into Midjourney, you describe your style. So I might say, this is simplifying it, but saying, I'd like an adult coloring book page that is all line art, black lines on a white background.
Mm-hmm.
And then I use what I generated in ChatGPT of a bungalow, which is a, house with beams and thatched roofs and a beautiful garden in the front yard set in the English countryside. And then I, use my aspect ratio that I'm going to need for the coloring book, which is I think 3:4, and whip it out. And then Midjourney will put out 4 different images based on the description that you've used. And based on those 4 images, you have the option to take one of those images and spin it off into 4 more images based on it, or you can upscale one of those images. And so you can go through that process, create all of your different artwork. That's obviously the most time-consuming part of the whole process, but it's a lot of fun. And then once you're done and you've got your images, you can take those images into something like Lightroom. Right. This isn't necessary, but I pull them into Lightroom, clean them up a little bit, pull out all the saturation so that I really am just dealing with black and white, that kind of thing. And then I pull them into something called Topaz AI, which is, there's a bunch of them. I feel like you hear the most about Topaz these days, and I've been very, very happy with it. It's an incredibly powerful image upscaler, and it gets rid of noise, it gets rid of blur. There's still, I'm a photographer at heart, and so there's nothing like taking the picture in the moment correctly.
Right.
But it is a great tool. I've used it for some old pictures too, of like my dad and I from 20 years ago. You're able to put these tools in, and it will facial recognize, it will upscale. It basically will create a much more refined image.
So it's for photographers then, Topaz is, because I'm not familiar.
Topaz is mainly for photography.
Okay.
Yes, Topaz is photographers, and I know about it through my photography, but it was extremely useful here because once I had my Midjourney image and I had cleaned it up a little bit in Lightroom and fully desaturated it, I then just pulled it into Topaz and upscaled it massively so that when I put it into the coloring book, I wouldn't have any pixelation issues.
Nice.
So Topaz does cost money, but it's a flat fee. And I don't know about you, but every time I see a flat fee these days, I'm ecstatic.
And you need to get it before they change it to subscription model is what you need to do.
I think it's in the 150 range, but it's something that you can sort of make up relatively quickly. And then after I finished in Topaz and I had my final images, I then went into Canva. And I used Canva to create 2 different files. First of all, the internal document, which is just dropping all of the images into a PDF file that you can create in Canva all together. And then you do the cover art separately. So Amazon KDP will give you a template for your cover. Once you fix your size and set everything in Amazon KDP, you can download a template for the cover, which you can then pull into Canva and use that to create your cover. So you've got 2 files from Canva. You've got your cover art using the template from Amazon KDP, and then you've got your internal file. And then you can take all of that over to Amazon KDP, and upload your files and all that good stuff. And then you populate it with things like a description. And that's where the Publisher Rocket tool comes in. That's another one that is for a flat fee. You can get it on sale. I think I paid about $150 for it again. But Publisher Rocket is a very, very cool tool where you can put in keywords and it will generate a list for you of it does this for product categories and keywords.
Right.
And it'll generate for you a line, a bunch of different keyword options from what you've put in. And it'll go across the list and give you information like how many searches a month there are for that particular keyword, what the average profits are for the top 5 people that are selling in that category. and things like that. So you can kind of take your keywords and zone in on areas where there's lower competition, but higher turnover and higher sales rates. So for example, the second one that I did the property one first. And then the second one that I did is this one, which is called Peaceful Escapes.
Oh, very cool.
And it's because I was able to find on Publisher Rocket, once I did my first go around, that landscapes was a really, really undersaturated but well-performing area on Amazon. So the second book that I did was Peaceful Escapes based on landscapes, and that's been doing very, very well because I was able to use Publisher Rocket first this time and kind of build my categories based on that.
I'm assuming the first one did well enough, because if it bombed, you wouldn't have gone like, oh, I'll make another one. So the first one sold enough that you were like, okay, this is something. I'm going to do the second book. And you did it in a week? Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was less than a week. The process becomes very, very quick once you're comfortable with it, and all the sort of nicks and the challenges along the way get figured out in that first round. The first one took me a few weeks. And then the second one only took me the week to put together. I forget the rest of your question.
No, I assumed it went well. Like it, I mean,
yes,
you paid for your tools that you were using, and you said, okay, this can make some money, kind of a thing.
So there's two things here. There's, first of all, like I have this thing where I have a hard time not being productive, and
right.
This is something that I can literally do for enjoyment in my downtime. So if I want an evening, like just on my couch chilling, like maybe half watching TV, messing around on my computer, like I can produce one of these in a couple of days. So it's relaxing enough for me that I think I'd be putting the time in and trying to get some inventory into Amazon, even if I didn't have big success with the first one. I'm lucky in that I have some platforms where I was able to get the word out very quickly and do very well. I think it was like the first book was like number 8 in its category in the first few days, which was awesome.
Ooh, Fred has a great question. Fred has a great question. See, he goes, do you do all the books all the books get sold directly via Amazon, or can you have inventory on hand? Like, do you have
everything? I mean, I guess you could have inventory on hand. And when you go through Amazon KDP, there you do have the ability, although you shouldn't abuse it, to buy publisher copies for basically at cost. So you can have some on hand, and I do have some on hand just like for people passing through the house where I think it might be appropriate, or I want to like bring it to an event to show somebody. But yeah, everything is basically otherwise through Amazon KDP. So KDP is print on demand. So when somebody places an order through Amazon for a KDP product, it's literally printed real time and shipped out. So you don't have to do it. The other reason that this appeals to me, and you see these candles behind me, these are the opposite of passive income.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the thing with Amazon KDP and why I think it's worthwhile. Like, even if you don't come in with a big audience, even if you aren't able to like get the first one to be a huge seller and make a ton of money off of it, if it's something that you enjoy doing anyway, like I like doing this. I enjoy it. I enjoy doing this as much as I enjoy watching television. And so, if I can create one of these and drop it into Amazon KDP and have, say it's $50 worth of passive income for the rest of your life for every month. I mean, was that worth your weekend? Yeah, it was very much worth your weekend. It's really, really worth your weekend if you've got 20 of them in the Amazon system. Yeah. And so because of the nature, I think that's what drew me to KDP. Like after my experience with the polar opposite of a product where you're real time making it like in your home and storing it in your home, the idea of something where Amazon was printing it real time and creating it for you, and you don't have to hold the inventory in your home. You don't have to pay for product. You don't have to pay vendors, is very appealing. So I would definitely run with this, even if you didn't have success in the first one, if it's something you enjoy doing.
So Paul says, yes, he keeps them on hand and sells them in his Shopify store. So he does the same thing. So this is fascinating to me because I do the influencer side of Amazon. I know a lot of people like the Dealcasters and Chris Stone and Jim Fuse who are here do the same thing. And what you were saying about having, it doesn't look like a lot of money when you're first going, but when you start having those things that come every day and continue to make you money long term, it's like investing, right? It's like, it's exactly like investing. So
it's 1,000%. It's an investment in passive income for the future.
This is fascinating to me. So, and I know a lot of people I've seen in the comments the same thing. What can you sell it on Barnes and Noble, or is it just for Amazon?
So Amazon does have third party, and there's probably people in the chat like Paul who can speak to this better than I can because I'm pretty new to it. But there are third party seller options when you're in Amazon. And they give you the price breakdown for those as well. The profit margin is obviously a little bit lower, but they do tell you. So you can set up for third-party sellers. I don't know if Barnes & Noble is necessarily on that list. There are other self-publishing companies. I think there's one called Lulu, where you can literally like create a listing and put it as a listing on your website, and you can put it on Amazon, and you can put it on. You can create the book and then have it be sold in various places. So it's not, Lulu isn't the seller. They're more like a print on demand kind of company.
Right.
But I just didn't feel the level of trust going into that as I would with Amazon. So, and again, like the purely passive aspect of this is one of the things that really appeals to me. So while in the future, especially if I write other sorts of books that are more on point with some of the other things that I do, I plan to have inventory on hand that I can sell. But part of the appeal is the fact that you don't need to.
Yeah. Paul, all the influencers, the Amazon influencers in here, we need to get Lisa's book, which I have ordered. It just didn't come here in time. Probably they saw it was me and they printed it slowly. But we should do reviews for her on there with our video reviews, and it's a best for both worlds. So, and Paul goes, yes, he uses KDP to publish lots of other places as well, including Barnes & Noble. And Lou's making fun of me that I said Barnes & Noble. He says I'm like 79 years old. It's still around. They're still there.
It is. He didn't say Borders.
Yeah, and I didn't say the Dewey Decimal System either. Remember that? Schoolhouse Rocks. Did you have? I could hear the gears going from here, Lauren. What? I know you have some questions, so I'll let you go.
No, it's just fascinating to hear how refined the process is now. Like where you're like, oh, and I went to this tool and I did this, and like I can imagine just the difference between the first round and the second one, like the shortened timeline, I think just brings up a really interesting point around creativity of like that learning curve is so enticing. And then you do the next one and like it's smoother. For anybody who's doing this, like, are there lessons you think that you could take away from this for someone who wants to do something maybe in a slightly different domain, but they want to leverage AI tools, you know, where did you go to learn this? Or did you bring your own sort of understanding from photography and sort of just transpose that to a slightly different domain? Like, how do we, I'll get to a question here, I promise. How do we?
It's so fascinating. There's so many. Yeah.
I there's just so many get short questions.
How do you keep going? Like when you're in the stuck place? Because I have to imagine there was a stuck place in the first round of building this.
I mean, there were a lot of stuck places, and God bless YouTube, you know, and all the other wonderful sources of information. You know, when there's so much out there on AI right now. Like everybody is talking about it nonstop. There's almost too much to learn. Well, there's far more.
Is there good stuff out there about AI? Because that's my hang up, right? Like I'm like, it's so new. It's the blind leading the blind in some cases.
I don't think it's the blind leading the blind in the slightest.
No,
but no. Okay. I mean, I think like. I'm not going to sit here and list YouTube accounts, but I'd be happy to provide them off screen later. But no, I mean, there are some wonderful, wonderful teachers out there, and just, you know, take the time to go down that rabbit hole. Like find somebody who interests you, who's saying smart things, and he's going to mention like 3 other names while he's talking. Go look up those people and watch everything that they're doing too. And there's some really, really amazing names in the AI world that have sort of become the newsmakers in the space and that are doing sort of weekly shows, and you can kind of use those as a starting point to find different tools. I mean, I know I spent a lot of time on DALL-E and with Blue Willow before I made the leap to Midjourney, because those two weren't working as well for me. And it's by sort of just being tuned into the world of what people are talking about that I made my way from one to the next, because I feel like for a while, all everybody was talking about was DALL-E.
Right.
Which I don't personally, I mean, it's cool. It was incredibly cool when it first came out, but it's more like creating an incredible oil painting that like looks like it might have been done by Basquiat than doing something more practical.
Let's talk about these image creation tools, because a lot of people know about ChatGPT, but a lot of people don't know about Midjourney. And I agree with you. Midjourney, I've been using it for my blog posts. I've been using it for all sorts of things. I think it's the best one out there. The big hiccup for people is that it's a Discord based, and you have to kind of learn Discord, which is not that scary. I've done, you know, things with it with Midjourney. I think it's great. But learning the prompts, and what I learned, and it was one of those YouTube channels that I think you mentioned, was that I used ChatGPT to create my prompts for Midjourney. Because I don't know enough about photography. Like, you know, all the lenses and the f-stops and blah-da-dee, blah-da-dee. And I don't. And so I could say, hey, create this. And I say, use Zeiss lenses to do this. And it shot my Midjourney prompts to the moon. They look incredible now. So let's talk about, like, YouTube channels and then learning how to prompt correctly. I think that's the big thing. And using them together, like using, you know, those, go ahead. Sorry.
No. So I think obviously, you know, watching tutorials on YouTube and things like that is incredibly useful. But I think, first of all, I'll say that, like, I had never used Discord. Like, I had gone to use Discord before. Like, I have, you know, lots of people in my life that have, you know, things on Discord. What do you call it? A Discord, sort of like a,
yeah.
I'm showing how much I don't know. But people have said to me, "Oh, I have a Discord. You should come join and check it out."
Right.
And I'll, like, go into Discord and I'm like, "Oh no, that's
right. It's scary.
feels very old school and very scary at the same time." So I have never used Discord before this, and I literally went to a YouTube account where they were like, "Okay, first you create your little Discord account, and then you find the Midjourney bot, and then you create your own little room and you invite the bot in." So you can do some private work in Midjourney by inviting the bot in. But all of that being said, I think even beyond watching YouTube tutorials, the best thing you can do on YouTube is watch other people work. And that's the really cool thing about the way Discord works, is that you can work privately with a Midjourney bot. Like, I've created my own server and invited the bot in, and that's what I do it with. But I force myself to go back to those newbie rooms. Because when you first join, when you go into the actual Midjourney server, there's a list of, there's newbie rooms, and that's, I think they're called newbie rooms. You literally click on one of those and it's just this chaos, because it's just millions of, like, lots and lots and lots of
you
people
learn from prompts is what you do.
Doing the same exact thing that you're doing. And it's like real time, the screen is flying up and you're seeing a prompt and what it generated, and you'll see stuff you like. Right. And just make note of it. And don't steal the person's prompt, but you can say, like, oh, this person made reference to this photographer. That turned out really cool. Oh, wait, this article used the term, like, linear graphic art, and it came out really, really cool. So you can be in those newbie rooms real time and seeing what other people are doing and get inspired by that. And then the other thing that you can do that's super useful is Midjourney is on Discord, but they also have their own site, and all of your own images are stored there. So if you go into Midjourney and you log in as yourself and you look at your own catalog of created images, if you click on one of your upscaled images, one of the options that you have is to see similar generated images. So you can click on that and look at similar generated images. That's useful and necessary, first of all, to make sure you're not copying anyone else unintentionally. But the other reason that's really cool is that you can see what those prompts were. So if you're trying to create an image of a beautiful, like, line art drawing of an English bungalow in a bungalow in the English countryside, and it pulls up everything it's done that's similar to that, you can say, oh, this person used reference to this. Oh, this person thought to use the word grayscale. That was really helpful in keeping it monotone. That you see the things that people are doing and learn from that. So, you know, you don't want your prompts to end up being 6 pages long or not. And you don't want to copy language that you don't understand or that doesn't necessarily apply, but you pick up these little phrases along the way that become a part of, you know, your form of prompt. Like, if you're doing something like a coloring book, one of the things that's cool is that the only thing that really needs to change sometimes, even though you play with other stuff, is the description of the image. But, like, the style that you want to use and, like, the vibe of it, and that you want it to feel cozy or you want it to be grayscale, or all that stuff stays the same if you're creating something like a coloring book. So you can sort of slowly create your, like, perfect prompt that's going to be developed real time, obviously, for specific images, but sort of your go-to prompt, you can develop it over time, not by just looking at YouTube, by seeing what other people are doing in the server. And that's part of what I love so much about Discord, is that it's sort of that hive mind. We'll get more into this, but it's sort of that hive mind nature of art creation.
So let's talk about that, because there's a lot of people in the comments who are like, this is what stopped me. This is Quilling Fun says, stopped me from looking at Midjourney, the Discord aspect of it. I had the same reaction you did. I did too. So I thought it was Slack for gamers for a long time. But, and once again, a little side note to the people who sponsored the show, the amazing people at Ecamm, they have one of the best communities I've seen around a company and a product. And I mean, just go in there and look how they take care of their community. But they have gone over to Discord, and it's amazing. It's an amazing community. Mark Schaefer, his Rise community is over there on Discord. Incredible one. I've actually started mine over there as well because of the aspect of it. And there's a reason why there are million Discord servers. Yes, they were for gamers, and a lot of them use that, but it's in the culture now. And I'm an old fuddy-duddy, and I want to know what's going on. So that's why I wanted to do it as well. But it's worth going in and checking out because the stuff you can do in Midjourney is really, really amazing. One of the things that I will say, Lisa, that I did not do, so I pay for the Midjourney service, and I pay for it because I use the stealth feature. I don't want my stuff, because I could go to your website, I believe, your Midjourney site, and see all your images that you're creating. And I don't want that. Well, I use stealth because I pay for it, because I don't want anybody to see it. They can't come see mine.
So I pay for Midjourney as well, obviously. I mean, you can't. I mean, I think exactly. I think the base is still $10 a month, and you really can't. Yeah. It used to be that like you kind of had access to the server based on usage, and it wasn't like that busy, so you can kind of get away with the freemium or the free usage. It kind of got to the point pretty quickly, just because it is so useful that if you're not paying the base of $10 then per month, then it's not really.
But I use the command slash.
But I think it's like $30 a month or something for the amount of time that I use.
I liked your idea about going in and seeing what other people were doing and make sure you weren't copying anybody. But I used the command slash stealth. So my images don't go up to any place where anybody can see it.
So I actually you can also create your own server and invite the bot.
Yeah, that's what I've done.
This all sounds very intimidating. I'm going to reiterate, I don't use Discord other than for this specific purpose. Right. So and everything that Jeff is saying is real and true and very, but don't feel like you're like having to open the door to being like a Discord person.
A nerd.
Like I literally
don't be like Jeff
for the purpose of using the Midjourney bot, and it's just a communication tool for that. But yeah, so you can do the stealth mode if you're paid. But then also I just created my own and invited the bot into it. And so you don't have that sort of chaos of everybody creating the images and like not being able to keep up with where yours is landing in the screen and having to go into like your message box to see your images. So I do force myself, like I was saying, not force myself. I do go into the main Midjourney server and use and work in those newbie rooms. Sometimes just see what the language people are using is, but then most of the time I'm working in my own area. Yeah.
So slash room says Jeff does look like an average Discord mod. Thank you very much for that. Lauren, do you have any questions?
No, I'm just thinking about how we live in the future, and you're inviting bots into your room. Like that's weird. And now, this is a little overwhelming, I think. Like I used Discord back in the day for gaming. And so I know you can type messages into it, but this is next level.
So and there's two lines that you hear all the time, right? With AI. First of all, is that it's the worst it's ever going to be. So like learn it now and try to keep up. And also like keep in mind that like the thing that like was in the top 10% of so ChatGPT 3.5 scored in the bottom 10% on the bar exam, the standardized bar, and ChatGPT 4 scored in the top 10% of the bar exam. So that's how quickly, just in the course of like 2 months, that we upscaled.
AI is insane.
Yeah, it's amazing. So this is a great question, and I almost wanted to talk about this, but this is a Quilling Fun says, question for later. As a former lawyer, what do you think about the questions of the legality of AI art and its usage of actual artist art as a reference? So this is really pertinent because Secret Invasion launched this week, and we're all Disney fans. Most of us are Marvel fans too. And they got a bunch of flack because the opening title of that was created with AI. And a lot of people are mad at Disney and Marvel for doing this, but they have come back, and even it was in Variety today, I think, that they said, listen, the artists used this because it was a certain look. They used it as a tool. So we have this really flashpoint kind of, everybody's worried about their jobs being taken away by AI, or it's stealing from artists. I like what their response was, is we use this as a tool. Everybody was still employed. We didn't fire anybody to do this, but we used it as a tool because it had the look that we wanted to do. So Lisa, what are your thoughts? I know you're a former lawyer, but I would love to know what you think about all this.
Yeah, so I'll start by saying I think that the truism is very correct, that AI is not going to take your job, but people who can use AI are going to take your job.
Oh, that's good.
Um,
Yeah, that's really good.
and it's absolutely true. It's like, when we grew up, everybody was saying, oh, you need to learn the minutia of math, because you're never going to have a calculator in your pocket. Well, we do have a calculator in our pocket now. And I liken that the way that the way that people used to talk to us about the calculator. And there are still mathematicians, right? There are still mathematicians. What we've done is get rid of the rote. We get rid of the rote work, and we are able to concentrate on just the areas where we contribute creatively. And so I may not want to do my own, multiplication, but if I'm a mathematician, I might want to develop a new theory. And then this tool is making it so that I can get rid of all the mess and focus on where I can specifically contribute. I think it's, the same thing, the same thing that we're seeing in ChatGPT. And while I think some of the newer some of the older original models where you could literally like see pieces of people's art, like that's not
Right.
okay. Like we
Right.
can't do that. We need to be giving credit where credit is due. But at the same time, I think that we're sort of reframing art in a way where, yes, there's absolute value and incredible value in the artist creating the art in the old-fashioned way, so that and that sort of communication and connection that you get in connecting with an artist who's created something. But I think the AI is interesting because it's more art as a response,
Hmm.
right? Like I didn't create the art. I'm more, as the creator of it in words, I'm responding to it and reacting to it with you, with the
Right.
rest of you. And so I think our humanity starts to be in the way that we're responding to the art and not the fact that we're creating the art. This isn't new, right? Duchamp put like a urinal on the
Right.
wall. It was ready-made art, like
Oh yeah.
ready-made
Yeah.
art. That's no different than this. He did not
Right.
create that urinal. What he did was saw the art in it.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're doing. We are reacting. We did not form the urinal from an artistic perspective, but it was still art because. But we laugh at that.
Right.
I mean,
It's
it's
true.
in
Yeah.
every art course in the
Well.
world. Is that Duchamp had ready-made art, and like, what did that mean? And we're still arguing about it. Like,
Mhm.
these are not new conversations.
Well, it's also like I I use this couple of these illustrations before. Like, I'm a woodworker, and a lot of people got upset when the CNC machines came out that could cut, with a laser cut, and it took away. But now people are creating amazing works of art with wood using both hand carved stuff and the CNC machine. We used to have blacksmiths on every corner, right? And we don't have that anymore. We still have blacksmiths, but we just have really good ones that only do certain things. My thing is like you have to embrace this technology. You don't have to like it, but you have to embrace it. So it's just like when you go to your family reunion and your aunt with the mustache comes over and tries to kiss you. You may not like it, but you still have to do it, right? She's your aunt. You don't have to embrace her. You just have to do it. So, anyway, that's my.
We might
thoughts
need
on
to have a
AI.
different conversation around boundaries.
Yeah.
She started with the urinal stuff. So anyway, come on. So gosh, we could talk about this forever, but we're getting close on time. I wanted to talk about some of the stuff, Lisa, as you kind of did your project about the creativity we talked about a little bit at the beginning. But like now that the first two are done, is there anything that you would do differently in this process? I mean, you're always going to have to be doing research on the new AI stuff because there's going to be new tools that come out and make it a little bit easier. But is there anything you wish you would have done differently when you started the project?
I mean, not necessarily. Like I said, I've just been learning along the way and was purposefully using it as a learning tool and lowering the stakes. But I mean, I think sort of the order in which I do things has changed a little bit. I mean, while you don't want to sort of feed the content machine, as we were talking about
Mm-hmm.
before, you still kind of want to be working in categories and doing things that people can. That people want. And so I now start with Publisher Rocket. Like when I told you my chronology, Publisher Rocket came at the end, but Publisher Rocket was the very first place that I went. When I created my second book, because I was able to really zero in on a category that was undersaturated but performed very, very well. And so like coloring books that I'm working on now sort of delve into that even more. There are areas that are like fun for me to create, and they're sort of mid-journey friendly as far as the sorts
Mm-hmm.
of images that they are. But there's certain keywords and certain categories of things. Like I don't bother unless you really want to do it and just want to do it as a learning tool. Like don't waste your time on like a mandala adult coloring book project, because there are tens of thousands of them in Amazon system, and it's going to be almost impossible for you to hit that sort of top 5 where you're making real money. But if you're doing something like insects or, there are ways that you can, like Lauren, I see you, I think of you so much when I'm doing this kind of thing because the educational aspects are so real, like being able to like color in the periodic table and learning elements while you're doing it, like that sort of thing. There's so many different ways that you can work educational tools into these things. But I think like starting with figuring out what categories are fun but undersaturated.
Bearded men culling book. Is that a thing? We should look.
Type it on in.
Yeah, I need to get it.
Oh
man, we are running out of time. We've had some great comments. Lou says, like Jeff, you don't have to like him, but you have to embrace him. No, stay away, stay far away. Restraining orders coming for Mr. Magello. So, Lauren, do you have any other final thoughts as we go on? We could go another hour because this is so relevant and fascinating, and I can't wait to talk to Lisa when we're at Momentum again.
I'm just super excited to see where this goes for you next because I love that you're following your creativity. I like that you're matching data data-backed stuff that's like sort of pointing the needle. That's very in alignment with how I think about things too. And so I just love the reminder to tap into what we truly love and what intrigues us and to continue to learn and lean into curiosity. I think that's the thing you can't replicate in AI. You just
and just don't be scared of it. Like don't worry that it's going to take your job. Like have fun with it. Delve into it. Like calculators didn't do away with mathematicians, and this isn't going to do away with artists. It's just a tool. It's just one more way to express yourself. Like I might not be able to draw these things personally, but I love being able to respond to them with everyone else.
So I asked this question because I had Dustin Stout on, who has created a great AI tool called Magi, which you should look at, Lisa, because it's really great because it kind of it can save your prompts instead of leaving it somewhere else, and it's really cool the way it ties in. But we talked about this because he's a blogger. He started as a blogger, and I'm worried. I said, "Are you worried about AI scraping your content?" And I posted this. I did a reel with him answering that question, like he's not really worried about it. And a recipe, a food blogger came on and give me this really long comment. She goes, "They're already scraping my sites, my content, and recipes you can't copyright anyway. So it's the stuff that you write beforehand that kind of pushes you out there." So is there any thoughts about that? It was really bothering her that it was happening because she was having her stuff get ripped off, and AI is scraping her recipes to use somewhere else. So what do you tell people like that? I'm sorry I put you on the spot, but this was something that just happened recently.
You're fine. I think, just keep innovating and don't worry about people using your work. I mean, Picasso said, bad artists copy, great artists steal.
Right.
Right. And I think it all just goes down to that. Like, if somebody's using your stuff, then great. But I also think that we need to think a little bit about the sorts of content that we create and what's valuable in this very changing world. Like, how useful is a short blog post on a Googleable topic useful in a world where if I type a question into Google, it's literally generating effectively a blog post in response, like in the right panel of my screen. And so what's going to become so much more valuable is taking the time to compile useful information for specific groups of people. So they're not having to create the wheel on ChatGPT, using your own opinion, using your own voice, obviously. Like authenticity, if you think authenticity was important the last decade, like you have no idea what's coming because it's all that's left.
Right. And that's why I love live video.
In a world where a computer can write a practical blog post on any subject in the world, like your value is your humanity. Like the five-legged goat on the wall of the Contemporary, like that's our life now. Like the imperfections and like the things that make it real. Like that's the beauty of all of this. Like that's why this is so cool. Like nobody's going to steal your humanity from you. We're just giving you tools to like cut the riffraff out of the stuff that you might not be as good at or that you might not want to spend your time doing. Like I don't want to spend my time multiplying, and so I use a calculator. That's okay. That's fine. I'm still me.
See, this is why we love Lisa and having her on the show. Lisa, I want to give plenty of time for you to say where they can find you, where they can find your coloring books, like what they need to search for on Amazon. And I would consider it a personal favor for anybody watching the show if they would go get her books and give her a great rating and review on Amazon, because that is super important. But go ahead, Lisa, tell them where they can find you.
Yeah, so as usual, my site is thecastlerun.com, like you said, where we document this crazy journey that we've taken from like Wall Street to Disney World and kind of rewriting this life that speaks to us. Core Memory Candles is my candle line. But over on Amazon, you can find anything that I do just by searching my name, Lisa DiNoto Glassner, DINOTO, Glassner, like a glass of milk, NER, and that'll bring up any books that I put out. So right now I have the property book, Property Lust, and then Peaceful Escapes is the landscaped one.
Awesome. Our friend Lou Magello says he is heading over to Walden Books. Oh, I used to go there all the time. That's how much a nerd I was at the mall to find her books. So good luck with that. Hope he can find them all, by the way. So he's getting old, his eyesight. So Lauren Gaglioli, where can we find out more about you and all the cool stuff you got going on?
So yeah, laurengaglioli.com is the home base. I talk a lot about SEO and also finding your purpose. Very related. So if you're curious about the stuff I do, come on over.
Awesome. And I am Jeff C, and you can find me at jeffc.com. But I'm getting ready to launch a Descript course, which is another AI thing that I use all the time, and they're getting amazing. If you see any of the repurposed reels or anything that I'm doing, I'm using Descript. So if you're interested in that, you can go to, I believe, yeah, it's jeffc.live. Where is it? It's Descript 101. So jeffc.com/Descript 101. You can find out more about that course that is launching soon, as well as make sure you check out our friends over at Ecamm. You can find out more about them at socialmedianewslive.com/Ecamm. They also have a new show that you need to check out over on their YouTube channel. And with that, thank you guys for being here. Thank you for being on the show. Thank you, Chuck and Sue and Fred, and I guess Lou too. All you folks who came and stopped by, left great comments. We appreciate you, and we will see you guys next time. Bye, everybody.
Ecamm fam, you already know what time it is. It's summer 2023. And what do we do every summer? We turn up with the Demo Mode Pros. Season 3 is coming, and we have 8 new Ecamm influencers who's gonna show you how to do everything you wanna do in Ecamm. I'm talking, you don't wanna miss this. Every new summer, there's always tons of new features. So if you want to learn how to level up, you might want to tune in. Ecamm fam, let's take it to live demo mode.